Hey guys, what's going on? I wanted to talk to you about your final IRB project here. So it's going to take the place of a final research paper, like I said we were going to have, and I mentioned this in kind of my emails and everything like that. So when you're putting together the IRB, and we talked about the IRB when we talked about ethics and this, that, and the other, there is a process and a form you fill out. So you go on the IRB website. I sent you the link to that. You'll start filling it out. You can either copy and paste each question into a Word document and answer it, or you can save it as a PDF. Apparently, I was unaware of that, and just send me in that. Either way is fine. Now, the reason we're doing that and not just sending in the IRB is if you did send in the IRB, then they would review it. The thing is, that's not we don't want the IRB reviewing these files because we're not actually doing it. So we'd be asking people to do work and take time for something that was a waste for them. Now, if you have aspirations of doing one of these projects after this class, I think that's awesome. I would love to help you out with that, and we'll put together and we will send the IRB in. Absolutely. So on the IRB, there's lots of different questions about your study. They're going to ask for, theoretical background, some hypotheses, why you, your sample size, how you're going to keep information private, all that kind of stuff. And you have to talk about all those things and maybe even do a little research about all those things and how those things are done if you're not quite sure. And of course, reach out to me and I can help you with that process. An important thing to remember with IRB is when you say something, say it asks you about your sample and how you're going to get your sample. If you say, I'm going to be sampling 300 people and I will recruit them from undergraduate classes at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, period. Okay, that's fine. But now you need to provide the justification. Why 300 people? Who's excluded? So is anyone available? Do people have to be 18? Does it have to be, what is your specific sample? Why? Why is it important to your study? And you have to provide, research, and you have to use citations and things for why that is relevant to your research and study. So you really do have to provide quite a bit of evidence for it. You don't just say, I'm going to have 300 people. Fine, but you need to tell me why. It has to be a convincing argument to show that you know why you're doing what you're doing, and that those kinds of things. You also, I provided 4 documents on D2L that are just examples of other documents that you would need to put in with IRB. So one I have in there is a recruitment letter. That is, if you're recruiting people, here is the letter or the email or whatever that you are going to send out to people for your particular study. And again, I don't care what kind of study it is. It can be qualitative, quantitative, whatever it is, but you need to send out a recruitment to recruit people. IRB wants to see what you're telling people and how you are recruiting them. So you need to do that. So you have to provide that for this assignment as well. Number 2 in there is a debriefing script. So that is after the survey, experiment, interview, whatever is over, providing them with the information about your study and what it truly was about. Telling them about any time you may have deceived them, telling them about the true nature, what you were looking for, what you were studying, which you don't want to do in the recruitment letter. You'll see my recruitment letter is kind of broad in that it's like, this is going to be a study about political attitudes. Well, really it's about, specifically something about politics and we want to know, but you don't want to tip your hand. You don't want to tell people before the study what your study is about, because you don't want people giving you answers that aren't true. So people have this thing where if they're doing an experiment, if they're doing a study, if they're doing anything like that, oftentimes people will try to give the researcher the information that they think the researcher wants. They do what's called hypothesis guessing, but that really doesn't do me any favors. Even if you are giving me answers you think I want to help me in my study, if it's not true, I don't want it. So you want people to not really know what it's about, but you have to give them some general sense in there. So you be broad, but in the debriefing you can be very specific about, hey, this is specifically what we were looking at and why we did it. People need to know. You also need in there a consent form. Okay, so the consent form is a form that once they've agreed to take a study. So say I send out an email recruitment letter and I say, hey, click on this link and it'll take you to Qualtrics, whatever. When you click on it, the first thing in the survey is oh my gosh, I'm losing it. But is this oh my goodness, I'm at a loss for words right now. What is the word I'm looking for? The oh my god, what is wrong with me? I've only done a million of these in my life. Um, anyway, it is the thing that you do to make sure that people are okay. I gotta look on my computer here. I feel like a doofus. Consent form. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? So you have a consent form explaining what they're participating in, telling them that their participation is voluntary. Remember, and here's an interesting thing that I may not ever talk about. Participation in a study is completely voluntary. Someone's allowed to drop out at any point and still receive whatever incentive was promised. If you promised people, say students, extra credit for doing a study, and they go to your study, answer 2 questions, and leave, you still have to give them the extra credit. If you promise people $10 for doing an experiment and they leave a quarter of the way through the experiment, you still have to give them that incentive. It's completely voluntary because they can leave for any reason and say, I was offended, this, that, or the other. So you have to be able to pay them. You have to tell them a little bit about the duration, how long it's going to be, what the risks are and the benefits, how you're going to keep their information confidential, what incentive there are, and then you have to ask people to sign or click to consent that, yes, this is okay. Also something to remember is at the end of every study, you have to give people the option to not use whatever data you collected. In a survey, you would have a survey question. Now that you've completed the survey, is it okay if the researchers use the information you provided? And at that point, they can say, you know what? No. Even though it's completely confidential, no one would ever know it's you, nothing. You have to give people the right to say, no, I don't want you to use the information I provided. Delete my responses. If it's an interview, at the end of the interview, they can say, you know what? I don't want you to use what I said. Can't do it. Something along those lines. In all of my time doing surveys and experiments, I think maybe 1 or 2 people out of thousands and thousands have ever, after the fact, said, I don't want you to use my information. Okay, so we take it out. No big deal. So, but you have to give them that option. And then they consent, and that's afterwards. They agree, and great, we keep your data. Something to think about, something to remember is you also will have to provide your instrument your measurement instrument to the IRB. So I've included in there a survey instrument, which has pretty much the complete survey in a Word document form. So I would program it on Qualtrics or some other site, but I'm providing you with every question and the instructions the whole way through, what everyone will see. You have to provide that to IRB. So they need the specifics. So yes, for your study, you're going to have to come up with, if it's a survey, what are the questions? What's the script? What are the instructions on there? If it's an interview, you're going to have to come up with the script that you're going to go by. And the questions you're going to ask and all that kind of stuff. If it's an experiment, you're going to have to explain it all. So you have to provide that as well. So this assignment, it's not a research paper, but there's going to be a lot of parts once you do it. So you do an IRB first, and then you do your study. But the IRB, even to get your study off the ground, you have to have really thought through your study, because you have to really preview and tell them everything you're going to do. So it's actually a pretty it really gets you thinking and gets you well along the process in your research. So you're going to fill out the actual IRB form, provide a recruitment email, provide a debriefing, provide your instrument, whatever that may look like for any kind of study you're doing. You're going to do all that, put that into a single PDF or a Word file, and then that will be your final project, final grade for the semester. So this week, I know you're finishing up reading and doing stuff, and people handed in the experiment. Next, they'll do, today is for the interview assignment as well. So that's, yeah, that's what's that. So that's pretty much the final exam paper assignment. So if anyone has any questions, of course, talk to me. We can Skype, talk on the phone, email, whatever the case may be. Cool.